Yeah. Okay. Hiya, good evening.
Good evening.
It's 8:12 in the evening. We've
I'm
never
gonna be
had an
looking
evening interview. Hello. It's the 19th of October, 2014. It's been a couple of years since we did an interview.
I think you said 2010.
No, that was halfway through. That was number 50. That was halfway through. At any rate, we're just going to do a little sort of a rehearsal, top of mind topics for future discussion.
Right.
So, take it away. You're in
Well,
your new premises now.
yeah.
Last time you were at home.
Well, this is quite a transition, and I'm trying to be realistic with regard to age, health.
Talk to the camera. Sorry.
Uh,
Yeah, you
not-
talk to me. It's okay.
Can I
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
to you?
yeah.
It's easy.
I just want it to be a little bit louder. I want to
Well,
make sure I'm picking it up.
So, it's been an eventful couple of years
Yeah.
where I've been in and out of hospital, changed my way of life, living in an apartment, socializing, all the things I didn't want to do, and actually enjoying it, which
Wow. That's good.
which is extremely lucky.
Good for you,
I don't like my health condition, although I wouldn't trade with many of the people in this facility.
Mm.
But being realistic, it leaves me only an hour or two a day, if that, and not consistently, where I can do what I normally would do. And it's an exciting time because this Macbeth dagger, I think I finally got more of a hold on it.
Mm.
And I would like to capture that hold. And I think I'm so pleased that you kept these records, because when I think under the conditions I'm now, the health condition, one of the best things I can do is leave an oral history, in which you've been recording. Because what's the goal? It's the goal for your generation, the coming generation, to extract what I would normally, if I was in better shape, I would be trying to summarize. But instead of putting that pressure on me, I keep the serenity prayer in front of me. You know, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Mm.
Well, with that in mind, I'm trying to attack this from the standpoint, what if I'm not here tomorrow? I'm knocked out of the box. And on one hand, it really doesn't matter, because we're just people at a point in time, and it's proven that we were out of sync in time. I think to a degree we're still out of sync, but not to the same degree as when we started. And everything that we are alluding to, most everything is in the literature. It's just the interpretation of the literature. If one would say, well, what's new? We're like the balls in the causal, is that we traveled, and no two of us traveled the same path. Today I put in the search engine, is God crowdsource?
Yeah.
And really that's a lot to do with it. It comes back to the statement that is a tautology, and also is wrong, and it relates to words, is survival of the fittest. And again, if you put that in the search engine, you will find the criticism of that. It's not the survival of the fittest. It may turn out to be the fittest, but survival of the luckiest. So it comes back to chance again.
Yeah, okay. That's all right.
So there are so many things. We're not alone. The econophysics, what we've been thinking about for years, and are doing the academic work necessary to give some verification. We have what happens with the web and what's happened over the last while with Google, with the Wikipedia, with the Ngram, is it called Ngram? Where the Google Ngram, I think it's called that, where you can see the frequency with which words appear in the literature out of about 5 million publications, and we can see how we were ahead of our time. So I'm trying to focus. Is it what's most important and why, and what I leave that can be of help to shorten the route for the coming generations. I don't know who else in the world's on the same track that likely there are, but where are they and how do we find them? So I was thinking if we did run a huddle, that one of the things in order to attenuate variety is that I would like to focus on your idea of the dream and what would represent the dream coming true. And there's different ways of putting it. But I think if I said that certain symbols have attained the relevance and position that is required, would be a measure of success. The causal wave, if it, we now in a futuristic world, if we had it in a dynamic skin tattoo, which looks like it's going to be possible in another science fiction world, what would happen if it became the dominant symbol that certainly represented the golden rule? It may have other representations. What would happen if the causal coin became legal tender? And what would happen if the certain words that we've come up with, meme, epiphany, a causal, parabox, became meaningful? That the measure of success would be a world where these devices which attenuate variety and give something substance that doesn't today have substance. If that world had those icons and symbols in a tangible way, that would represent, I think, success. Not necessarily a story, although a parable is important, but a parable represents words. I believe there has to be a parable, or parables, and the parables have to go beyond Plato's allegory of the cave and flatland. There has to be games. Why do I say has to be? Because the literature has shown that experience is necessary. You just can't talk to people about this type of thing. They have to experience. You can experience when you see a movie. You can feel the emotions. The tears come whether you want it or you don't, depending on who you are. If you're playing a game, the basic principle of the game becomes clear. If you are looking at the teaching of probability, the two dominant items in teaching are coins and dice. What would happen if all of a sudden the causal is as available and as familiar as coins and dice? And if we take a look and ask some questions, and they attenuate variety. One of them is, why is the probabilistic revolution and the taming of chance, which slightly exceeds in importance the Copernican revolution, a non-revolution? And how can it become, and why should it become? I think these are some questions that in our group that we can approach. In some ways we're putting a group together that is from my experience when I was trying to, I don't know how I put it, but find another way of life after losing Laurie, and as you know, I looked into the self-help movement. So we have an interesting group of people. We now, for the first time, have an experienced science fiction writer who claims he's really never had an epiphany or a meme. He's concerned about that, and that is a concern. But we do have a science fiction writer. We have a group that is sincerely interested in what we're doing and contribute. So if I wasn't in this shape, there are so many things I would do. The Fortuna I would send to influential people. And there are many, many things. I won't go into it now, and I would have to list it. So what I would like to do in our, if we have the time to carry on, is to answer that question, what's the most important thing I can do if I'm not here tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
And follow that. And I think we're getting close to being able to answer it. Another question that attenuates variety is, are we like iron filings in a magnetic force field? It's, I think every child should be able to answer that question for themselves. Well, I think we have a contribution, and I look at luck, David, in terms of the fact that I went a certain route after school, thinking that route would take me back to a university, and you know I've said this, and yet the route itself gave me the experience. I just picture myself as that ball going through. Gave me the experience that I wouldn't have gotten if I'd gotten back into the academic. It's given me the opportunity to find and experience what I wanted to go back to university to find and experience. Mm. And that combination between academic and playing the business game gave me those insights. The fortunate fact that my nephew is an engineer and in turn had a background in statistics and could comprehend is a material contribution, or else I wouldn't be where I'm at. So I have, David, I found something you wrote in 1978. We're saying the same thing today, and you expressed it very well and better than I did. So I guess the bottom line of what I'm
was
saying,
that the correspondence with Kendall?
Yeah.
Mm.
I guess the bottom line is that I'd like to address this aspect of what's most important and be most effective, and what I can leave if I'm not here tomorrow.
And what activities you'd like to initiate or encourage to others to initiate?
It will likely come up, but because we're dealing with a requisite variety problem, the fact that we happen to perceive something does not eliminate the problem of the fact that we're dealing with a requisite variety problem. If we in turn take the square, and it's quite amazing how the word up, which I have here, how the word up summarizes so much and attenuates so much variety in that story. Well, basically, we've had an up experience. Maybe differently, but close enough.
So you're talking about a square in Flatland?
In Flatland.
Yes.
So what A Square did not have to contemplate is what if what he perceived in Sphereland was relevant for his existence and the existence of those he loves in Flatland. And he is now faced with the tangibility of what exists in Flatland and the abstractness that is a memory from Sphereland. Under those conditions, how does he control his own behavior? And further, how in the world does he communicate this abstract paradoxical, non-common sense thing to others who haven't experienced what he has. Now that represents a parable that hasn't been written, as far as I can see. Or if it has been, it's not gained the notoriety and prominence that it deserves. So what I thought is that you and I would carry on, maybe get this a bit sharper, use the huddle to get a better clarity on the dream, the problems, and the possible solutions under these conditions. And then in working with Carl Schrader and the others, that we will film the dialogue we're having. And so if something happens to me, there is an oral history that really contains the information if somebody wants to dig it out. And if tomorrow something happened and you walk into my living room and you take a look and there's Fortuna, there are magnets, there's the epiphany, there's the causal wave. You're walking into a room where someone has something very comparable to religious symbols. And if you were an archaeologist, your job was then to determine what do these symbols mean? What did they mean to him? And what relevance? Why was he taken by them? Why was this comparable to a faith that he had? So I have a good feeling that, I don't know quite how to put this, but we almost have the thing. And I think now we're experimenting with a new avenue, fiction. Not that we haven't been talking about it for years, but for the first time we are in an environment with a potential author who has the frame of mind and such, who may be able to grasp this and have it become part of his. He, from what he's read so far, he feels it relates to what he wants in the nomenclature that he's used, that I think relates to his obligation of putting back in. So I don't know if I've been clear, but the basic thing is that dominates the behavior. What can I leave that can be of value if all of a sudden I'm knocked out of the game tomorrow?
What are the things you'd like to see happening next in the short term?
Well, I'd still like to have further crispness in what I've just said to you. Almost, I guess, it's the use of the huddle again, because the huddle seems to extract the dream, the obstacles, and the plan.
Right.
In the absence of the huddle, there's a tendency to go around in circles.
And who would you like to have in the room?
Well, I think we could start as I feel most comfortable if you and I do it.
Yes.
But after we do, I think then certainly Carl, Charles, likely Paul, Nadine, we work together. Now there are other people we can bring in too, and there's so many ideas, but I can't handle the correspondence.
Yes.
You remember our friend Sandy Zabel?
Yes.
Well, Sandy, I've been corresponding with him a bit, and I asked him, why did he see these things and not necessarily his colleagues? So he wrote me a paragraph on that. I think Sandy, and he expresses interest to continue dialogue. So I think someone like Sandy could be brought into the fold, because he certainly has written and grasped the revolution, the probabilistic revolution and the taming of chance, and he wrote about it, I think, in an extremely well and intelligible way. Lockwood, I forget his first name, one of the authors of the ethical implications of the polo distribution. He, in turn, is a fiction writer as well, and a philosopher, and maybe an entomologist, I'm not exactly sure, but so there are things like that. There are so many things that could be followed up with. There are others like David Harding, who just donated, I think, 5 or 10 million pounds to the museum in England for a math museum. And he's a hedge fund person, wanting to give back. If you recall, in 2008, I think he made about 280 million. And I gather he continues making these huge amounts. He's the one who financed the 2 chairs, one at Cambridge and one at Max Planck, on the role of chance in our lives, or on the public understanding of uncertainty. There are just so many avenues that could be followed, but it really addresses itself to the fact that the probabilistic revolution and the taming of chance likely is one of the most significant events in man's history. And I think we've got the beginnings of understanding why it hasn't caught on and what things may have to be done. The things that, again, has not been done in academia, this idea of the epiphany representing memes and epiphanies. If those of us who have chanced and feel a certain way, feel that and understand why someone would ask, is God a mathematician? And these people have what some authors had called the mathematical experience. I think we have an avenue to travel that, for whatever reasons, others have not traveled, that can move the world ahead in terms of a causal revolution. And but I can't, keeping the Serenity Prayer in mind, I'm no shape, so I'd like to plant as many seeds as I could and have momentum that did not require me. So again, not to take myself too seriously, is that I believe these things will happen regardless of what we do. Mm-hmm. It certainly showed up in the work we've done. We were maybe 20, 30 years or more ahead of time, but it showed up in a place I never thought of with quantum physics. But look at what we've been able, what have happened in the intervening time. We have the ability to show the wave. That's made an enormous difference. The road that David Bartholomew has taken in chance, what is it? God, chance, and purpose. Can God have it both ways? Is gaining momentum, and those people who are religiously inclined have to meld the probabilistic revolution into a religion that doesn't lend itself to it. And that's going on. Conferences are going on, papers are being written, the Templeton Fund is financing certain things. It's just rather interesting. It's all heating up, and it's all clarifying. And it's not the time not to be able to play the game, but I can't. And I want to do whatever is necessary to facilitate others, and taking advantage of my experience as a ball in the causal. So that's about it, I guess.
Okay, until the next time.
Right.